Welcome to the show, see Bojo guy. Wednesday, Sundays, catch the ride. Football hoops, we breaking wide. Stats and facts, truth on high. SWAC talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Hit the corner of the field, we strategize. Breaking the game down, no disguise. Play by play, we analyze. I wear sharp, we magnify. SWAC talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Just pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays, heat, Sundays, ignite. We talking legends, shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAC talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel. Wednesdays, heat, Sundays, ignite. We talking legends, shining bright. Back and forth, day or night. This the plug, we bring the light. SWAC talk where the convo's real. From Texas to Florida, we seal the deal. Cats pull up, the vibes are real. Chopping it up, we spin the wheel.
All right, everybody, what's going on, man? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. Of course, this is your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells coming at you. And today, we are going to talk about the SWAC championship game, man. We have made it through 14 regular season weeks, and we are at the ultimate game for the SWAC. East versus West, division champ versus division champ. Two teams, each looking for 10 wins. You know, both of them got 9 wins right now. Both of them 7-1 in conference. This is a good matchup because A, it is not a rematch, and B, this is a fresh matchup. These teams haven't played since the 2021 SWAC championship game, so this is a fresh matchup, and so this leads to some real uncertainty of this game. You know, there's no familiarity here, so we get to get a good fresh matchup, and I'm looking forward to that. I also want to say, man, do not discount this Purview team. You know, we can joke all day about the fans and everything, but do not discount this team. This is a team that deserve to be here, and they play some good football to get here. So don't discount them, and don't get upset if a prediction don't go your way. Don't take it personal. It ain't personal. It's just opinions. So also don't forget to hit the socials, Facebook and Instagram, both SWAC Talk, Twitter, SWAC Talk 76. Like the video, comment, and subscribe, man. Hit that subscribe button. We want to continue our march on to 2K. So hit that subscribe button and make it happen, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate everything y'all done for us as a channel and me as a person. So I thank y'all a lot for that. And let's go ahead and jump into this. So we're gonna start this thing off. Game is Saturday, December 6th, 1 p.m. Central Time kickoff in Jackson, Mississippi Veterans Memorial Stadium. We'll start off with the West Division champs, the Purview Panthers. They come into this game with a record. Wait a minute. They come into this game with a record of 9-3, 7-1 in conference. They are on a 3-game winning streak. Right, they're 5-2 at home, 4-1 on the road. This says they 0-0 in the neutral site, but this should be 4-2 at home, 4-1 on the road, and they won a neutral site game against Grambling. Although I guess you can consider that a home game, but it was a neutral site game. So they won it in a neutral site. They opened up their season with a 22-21 victory over Texas Southern, followed up with losses to UT Rio Grande Valley 27-21 and Rice 38-17. They beat Northwestern State 27-24. They beat Grambling 28-13. They beat Alcorn 13-12. They beat Southern 24-3. They beat Lincoln 38-0. They lost to Bama State 31-28. They beat Alabama A&M 48-5. They beat Pine Bluff 56-9, and they beat Valley 59-6. So flip them scores a little bit. So they come in pretty hot. Like I said, they come in with a 3-game winning streak, and they actually had an early lead in the first half against Bama State before they were unable to keep up with the Hornets in that matchup. But this is a team that's been hot. They've won. If you go back, they had a 4-game winning streak before they lost to a 5-game winning streak before they lost to Bama State. So they won 9 of their last 10. So they're pretty hot. And the same thing could be said for Jackson State. And we'll talk about the Tigers in a few. Looking at what the Panthers have done as a team this season, they're third in scoring offense at 31.8 points per game. They rank first in scoring defense at 15.8 points per game. Total offense, the Panthers come in at third at 431 yards per game. They've scored 50 touchdowns on the season, and they have averaged 6.7 yards per play. So they've been pretty good, pretty consistent moving the football. They do run the ball well, and that's been helping them a lot with moving the football. They lead the league in total defense at 269 yards per game. They've given 21 touchdowns, which are the fewest in the league, and they allow 4.5 yards per play. Again, that's the fewest in the league. Rushing offense, they're third at 202 yards per game, 29 touchdowns, 5.6 yards per carry. All really good numbers. They're actually second in the league in rushing touchdowns. They are fourth in the league in rushing defense at 143.5 yards per game. They've given up 14 touchdowns, which is the second fewest, and they have allowed 4 yards per carry, which is tied for the second fewest this season. Passing offense, they average 228 yards per game, which is fourth in the league. They have 21 touchdowns, and they've thrown 8 interceptions, completing 60% of their passes. Passing defense, they're number one, allowing only 126 yards per game, 7 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 52.5% completion rate. That number also is tops in the league. The touchdowns allowed are tops in the league. This is a tough defense to throw against. They will play a lot of zone. They don't necessarily wreak havoc and get to the quarterback, but they will make you make the right throw. And teams have not been able to do that. When you look at what they've done in the return game, because in a game like this is a big factor. They aren't really explosive in the return game. Ninth in kickoff returns at 17.9 yards per return, and last in punt returns at 4.3 yards per return. So that hasn't really been their strength. I mean, that's probably one of the few things that they haven't really done well this season. This season they are ninth in kickoffs. They average 49.6 yards per kick, and they have 2 touchbacks on the season, 36.2 yards on net returns. Field goals, they are 10th at 8 of 15 for 53% again. Special teams hasn't necessarily been the best for them, and that's something that could come back and bite you in a game like this. They're 7th in extra points, 47 to 49 for 95%. When you look at punting, they're 4th with a 35.8 yard average. That's net. They average 37.9 yards per punt on the season, which is 8th. They allow 1.2 yards per punt return, which is second in the league. So they cover kicks well. They cover their punts well. They just haven't really punted the ball extremely well. So if I had to check one thing that may hurt them in this game, it is special teams because they haven't necessarily been really explosive in the return game, and they haven't necessarily been the best team, punting the ball either, which can help, which can hurt you in a game like this. They are tops in the league in sacks allowed with 7, so they've done a really good job with protecting the quarterback. They have a veteran offensive line. A lot of those guys they brought in this season, and they're a veteran group. They've done a good job of protecting the quarterback. Um, they're 7th in sacks with 18. Like I said, they don't necessarily get to the passer like you would expect a defense like the defense with the numbers they have to do, but they are more of a team to make you beat them with your arm and how well you can process the defense and get the ball out on time. Interceptions, they're 7th with 8. They're 3rd in forced fumbles with 9, and they are 2nd in fumble recoveries with 10. Conversions. I always lose that damn first audio. First downs, they are 4th. They average 21.3 first downs per game. Defensively, they allow 15.7 first downs per game. That's first place in the league. Third down percentage on offense, they are 3rd at 42.5%. They lead the league in third down defense at 29.1%. Fourth down attempts, they are 6th at 50%, 9 of 18. They they're in about the middle of the pack in attempts on fourth down, so they don't necessarily go for it a lot. You're not gonna really see them, really take a lot of chances. I mean, out of everybody, they kind of a team that, if it's there, they'll take it, but they're not necessarily gonna be super aggressive on fourth downs. Fourth down defense, opponents convert 68%, 11 of 16, which is 12 in the league. Again, the opponents have attempted 16 first downs, 16 fourth downs, which again is on the lower scale. So um, teams have been efficient on converting fourth downs, but teams have really struggled on third down. So they kind of get you over the barrel there. They're 9th in penalties with 87 for 837 yards, averaging 69.8 yards per penalty. Opponents have been penalized 73 times for 672 yards, 56-yard average. That's 7th in the league. Red zone offense, they're 3rd. They're 43 of 50 for 86%, 36 touchdowns, 24 on the ground, 12 through the air, 7 to 10 on field goals. And they have 3 turnovers in the red zone, 2 interceptions, and 1 turnover on downs. Defensively, they're 4th in the red zone, 21 to 25, 84%. Only allowing 12 touchdowns, which are the fewest in the league, 9 rushing, 3 passing. Opponents 9 and 9 of field goals. And they have 2 takeaways in the red zone, one interception and 1 turnover on downs. They're 3rd in time of possession at 30 minutes and 36 seconds per game. So they've won that battle more often than not. Looking at this team kind of individually, they're led by Cam Peters at quarterback. He's been the guy for them for a good stretch of the season. He basically he started the season at quarterback. Tevin Carter came in for a couple games, and then Peters took over the offense for the Southern game. And so from the Southern game, which was on October 18th, to the end of the season, this offense has really exploded. The passing numbers have really increased. When you look at their passing numbers, the 224 against Southern, 258 against Lincoln, 189 against Bama State, 394 against Alabama A&M, 356 against Pine Bluff, and 266 against Valley. So they've honestly the passing offense has exploded. They've thrown for multiple touchdowns in every game in that streak except for one. So they've really been explosive there. But the run game hasn't fallen off either in those games. they ran the ball for 137 against Southern, which is the lowest in this winning streak. We're in this streak since Cam Peters took over. 165 against Lincoln. They ran for 248 against Bama State in a loss. 213 against A&M. 288 against Pine Bluff, and 234 against Valley. So this offense has really risen to the occasion in the last few weeks, putting up points, putting up 40+ points in their last 3 games. So they have shown that they can be explosive, because earlier in the season, this was a team that kind of topped out at 24, 27 points. They never really, they never really were just running the ball down your throat and picking up huge chunks of yards and touchdowns. But their defense was carrying them through games as the offense was finding their stride. And they come in pretty hot. You can say, look at the teams they've played, but still, you have to, you have to take care of business against whoever's on the field against you, and they've done that. On offense, the running game is led by Chase Bingman, who's the SWAC freshman of the year. 143 carries, 889 yards, 857 total, 857 net, six yards per carry, 8 touchdowns, has a long of 74. Also, Lamaje McDowell, he's the bruiser of the group. 79 carries, 477 yards, 6 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Cam Peters also has 390 yards on 71 carries, 5.5 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns. He's more of a guy that's gonna take off if he doesn't see what he likes. And he did that routinely against Bama State, especially in the second half, and that kind of kept him in that game. So you can definitely look for him to do that if it's there. Tevin Carter ran for 262 yards on the season, 4.9 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. Shadrick Bird, he had a couple big games in the midpoint of the season, 208 yards and 1 touchdown, average 5.8 yards per carry. So they have multiple guys that can run the ball, and that's why they're averaging over 200 yards per game. Passing wise, Peters has been really, really good at this point. 63% completion rate, 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. 2,092 yards. 70 yards is his long, averaging 190 yards per game, 145 or 227. So once he took back over, the offense, like I said, offense has just been that much better. And they have one of the best receivers in the league that isn't wearing blue and white, and that's Josiah Rockwell. 64 catches, was tied for league lead, 988 yards. Also leads the league 15.4 yards per catch, 7 touchdowns with a long of 70. Andre Dennis, 22 catches, 357 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Rodney Ojo, 25 catches, 350 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Travon Jones, 23 catches, 213 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Cameron Bonner, 15 catches, 194 yards, and 1 touchdown. So as you can see, they also Chaney Fitzgerald has Chase Bingman, he has 17 catches on the season for 122 yards, no touchdowns. But as you can see, Rockwell is the guy. After that, you have 5 other guys with double-digit catches, but the gap is big between him and everybody else. He averages over 5 catches per game, so he's gonna get targeted. So obviously, your best bet is to try to take that away and make somebody else beat you, because they will look to him for big plays. If you watch the A&M game, he had a couple of huge catches in that game. I think he scored 3 touchdowns in that game. So he's Peters is gonna look for him first, and then look for everybody else. So if you want to stop this passing offense, you definitely have to slow him down and know where he's at all times. The defense, and if you listen to Coach Jackson on the coach's call this week, he said it. This is a no-name defense, and that's not an insult at all. Kind of takes you back to those old Dolphins teams where they had the no-name defense. These guys are not necessarily guys whose names are gonna jump off the page at you. You know, there's not a lot of star power on this defense, but this is a team defense. They play team defense. Like I said, the scheme that they run really is not a scheme that's gonna have guys that just automatically go out and put out big numbers by themselves. But Trevor Randall is a name that you should know. Um, leads the team with 84 tackles. He has 4 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 3 interceptions, 1 pass breakup, a quarterback hurry, um, 1 fumble recovery, 1 forced fumble. Darryl Sterling Jr., 68 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack. He has 4 pass breakups, 4 quarterback hurries. Kennedy Parker, that's another guy you need to keep tabs on. 65 tackles, 13.5 tackles for loss. That number leads the team. 4.5 sacks, that number leads the team. Again, not eye-popping numbers. And when you look at it that way, you're like, well, damn, they ain't got nobody with 8, 9, 10 sacks. This defense is garbage. No, this defense does it. They do it as a unit. They're not, like I said, they're not a team that's just gonna pin their ears back and come at you. They're gonna make you make a play, and they're gonna tackle, and they're gonna tackle well. So they have 5 guys with 60 plus tackles. So that's spreading the wealth. Sterling Roberts has 63 tackles and 6 tackles for loss. Cameron Amo, he has 62 tackles, 2 tackles for loss. 3.5 tackles for loss and 2 sacks. He also has 3 interceptions. That number ties with Randall for team lead. Eric Zachary, 2 interceptions and 43 tackles. So this defense is full of guys that any one of these guys can make a play at any time. So you kind of have to just know what you have to just take care of your business and run your offense the proper way to beat these guys. You're not gonna hero ball this team. You're not gonna go out there and just sling the ball over the place on them. Unless you can find them matchups and your quarterback can make those plays. So don't get caught up in name. Don't get caught up in their numbers. This is a really good team and a really good defense. You don't lead the country in anything by accident. So I just don't. I see a lot of disrespect toward Purdue, and I'm not talking about the general trash talk, which we all engage in, but there's a lot of disrespect toward Purdue that like this team should not even be on the field on Saturday. I'm not saying that they're gonna win. I'm just saying this is a team that's gonna be well coached, and they're gonna play their style of football, and that's that. So I see a lot of I see people just talking about this team like they're nobody, and then that's the furthest thing from the truth. This is one of the few times in the last few years that the West Division champ deserves to be here. I'll say that till this game is over, regardless of what the result is. This Western Division champ deserves to be here. I was one of the people earlier in the season saying, oh, we should, if Bama State and Jackson State game is close, we should have a rematch. But nah, bro. Nah. Prairie View stepped up and Prairie View showed that they earn the right to be here. Now, what happens on Saturday is totally different than what happens in a preview. We can't account for actual game. We can't account for none of that. But just know that this team does deserve to be here, and I'm gonna routinely say that because I don't, like I said, I don't mind disrespect and trash talk, but I don't like disrespect that's just thrown out just because you don't know nothing about a team. I just don't like that. Um, Looking at the kicking situation, Adam Atwell is their punter. He's averaging 38.6 yards per punt with a long of 57. That's 2 touchbacks, 12 kicks, 12 punts fair caught, 14 punts inside the 22 50-plus yard punts. They have had 1 punt block this season, and they haven't blocked one yet. But you never know in games like this. They've used multiple field goal kickers. Um, Aiden Webb is their primary guy. He's 7 of 13. with a long of 44. He's 4 of 5 from 20 to 29 yards, 2 of 5 from 30 to 39 yards, and 1 or 2 from 40 to 49 yards, 0 for 1 from 50 plus. Diego Alfaro, he had one attempt, which was a 50 plus yarder against, was that against Bama State at the end? Um, and then Carlos Villagomez, he's 1-on-1 on field goals with a longer 32. So they've kind of had their ups and downs there. Alfaro is their kickoff specialist. He averages 53.2 yards per kickoff with 13 touchbacks and 2 kicks out of bounds. I don't know why the swag number said that 2 touchbacks. I must have looked at that wrong. Return wise, Andre Dennis, he has 13 punt returns for 84 yards, 6.4 yard average, longer 13. Jacoby Banks has an 18 yarder, which is the longest return on the season for them. The opponents, they haven't returned much either. Their longest return is 20 yards. So this team has been good at covering punts. That's going to be a challenge against Jackson State. And that's why I say special teams could be the difference in this game. Kellen Stewart leads the team with 21 kickoff returns for 444 yards, 21.1 yard average, with a long of 40, which is the long on the team. They have given up a 78 yarder. As a team, opponents average 17.5 yards per return. So again, you got a guy like Terrell that can change a game at any time for Jackson State. That this could be a game changer. That's one thing I want to see how Prairie View approaches this game. How they're gonna, are they gonna, just kick it out of bounds and take their chances there? Are they gonna try to kick it deep and kick it out the end zone, or directional punt, whatever? It's gonna be interesting to see how they handle the special teams aspect of this game. And so that's pretty much the Panthers. Like I said, they've been a really strong team all season, especially on the defensive end. They haven't really given up a lot. When you look at opponents, they've given up over 200 yards on the ground twice. Once to Alabama State, 213, and then Rice, who runs basically an option offense, ran for 347 in the third game of the season. And when it comes to passing, again, not a lot of yardage allowed through the air. 263 to UT Rio Grande Valley is the only team that's thrown for over 200 yards against these guys. So, they have a challenge. They have a challenge waiting for them. Like I said, I'm talking to Prairie View right now, but they have a challenge across the line of scrimmage from them on both sides of the ball. This is gonna. I really think this is gonna be a slugfest type game because both of these teams are very good. And let's talk about Jackson State now. The Tigers are as advertised. I'm not gonna praise Prairie View to put down JSU. There's not that type of show. I think Jackson State obviously deserves to be where they at. I think they're the best team in the league. I think they've been the best team in the league all year. I mean, they was my pick to win the SWAC this season. Nothing has changed. Even with injuries, nothing has changed with this team. They have an identity and they stick to it. There's been very few teams that's been able to get them out of what they like to do. And when you look at what they did to get here, they beat Hampton 28-14. They lost to Southern Miss 28 to 38 to 20. They beat Tuskegee 30-0. They beat Southern 38-13. They beat Alabama A&M 57-24. They beat Bama State 38-34. They lost to Grambling 26-24. They beat FAMU 41-16. They beat Valley 42-3. They beat Bethune-Cookman 28-13. And they beat Alcorn 27-21. So they've shown, they've had those games where they kind of, went out and, really knocked teams out the box. Then they've had a couple games where maybe they let guys hang around a little bit more than they need to, with some self-inflicted stuff. But they all in all, through it all, they've won these games. And again, they also deserve to be here, and they deserve to be the home team. They are, they are, they are like Dennis Green say, they are what they say they are. Um, Again, this team is 9-2. They only played 11 regular season games, a 7-1 in conference. They come in on a 4-game winning streak. They're 5-0 at home, 3-1 on the road, 1-1 in neutral sites. So they've basically won everywhere they've been, and they come in carrying that target. They say heavy is the head that wear the crown, and they've been able to withstand a lot of things coming at them, which is what happens when you're trying to run it back. Teams always are gonna kind of come at you a little bit harder, but they've survived and they've thrived. Offense 33 points per game, well 33.9 points per game. Really, you can basically say 34, but 33.9 points per game. Defense also second at 18.4 points per game. Total offense, Tigers lead the league, 478 yards per game, 6.8 yards per play. That number is second to Alabama State's absurd 8.1 yards per game. And Tigers over 5,000 yards of offense as a whole. Second in total defense, 317 yards per game, 22 touchdowns, um, 5.3 yards per play allowed. All those numbers are second to Prairie View. Rushing offense, this team runs the ball. That's their identity. They run the ball. They run it. I don't even want to say they run it well. They run it great. They have multiple weapons they can throw at you. They're steadfast in running the ball. You're not really gonna get them out of that. I saw people when they was getting ready to play Alabama A&M. They was like, all we got to do is slow down their run game. Make them one dimension. No, you're not gonna slow this run game down. You might, you might, you might, you might, you might, you might be a speed bump, but they're gonna run the football regardless, and they're gonna run it till it pops open. They're not gonna, they're not gonna stop running the ball. If at some point they sitting at 100 yards by halftime, they're not just gonna be like, oh, now we about to, we're gonna try to just air it out because the run game ain't really that tonight. No, they're gonna keep running. This team run the ball 502 times per game. That's the most in the league by far. Um, just for comparison, the second place team has 440 carries. So they run the ball, and that's with one less game. Let's also take that into account. They run the ball more. They run the ball almost 60 times more than a team that played 12 games. So if you put another game's worth of carries, this is a team that run the ball over 540 times. So they done this in one less game. They average 269 yards per game, which leads the league, 28 touchdowns, which is third in the league. And they average 5.9 yards per carry, which is also second in the league. They lead the league in rush defense. So that's again, this is a good matchup, man. No phase of their offense or defense for either team is ranked below fourth in anything. So you're not gonna, there's no clear weaknesses on either team. There's nothing that you can look at and be like, well, we can exploit this because these guys don't stop the run or these guys don't stop the pass. So both teams have their strengths and their weaknesses aren't that bad. So you're gonna have to play your best game on both sides of the ball to win. Like I said, the team only allows 110 yards per game on the ground. Again, that's for one less game. So another game, the numbers might even be lower. They've only allowed 9 touchdowns and 3.7 yards per carry. Passing offense. This is the only thing that I wouldn't even call it a weakness, but this is the only thing I think that they could be better at if they needed to, but they haven't really needed to. And the passing attack is sixth in the league at 209 yards per game. They complete 62% of their passes, and that's with 2 different starting quarterbacks. 18 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions. Again, only, basically a 3-to-1 ratio through the air, touchdown to interceptions, and that's playing two different guys. There hasn't been a huge drop off, but I'm gonna kind of explore that a little bit um, as we move forward. Um, Fifth in passing defense, 207 yards per game, 13 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Opponent's 59% completion rate. Like I said, the difference in this game probably going to be the return game. Jackson State fourth in the league in kickoff returns at 222 yards per return. No touchdowns yet this year, but anything can happen in a game like this. They're sixth in punt returns at 9.6 yards per return. Again, no returns yet, but you just never know when you got dangerous return men. They're fourth in kickoffs with a 39.8 net average. They have 25 touchbacks and 58.1 yard average per kick on kickoffs. Field goals, seventh, 12 of 19 for 63%. Extra points, they are third, 47 of 48 for 97%. Punting, they average 31.3 yards net per punt, 35.2 yards per punt total, and they allow 3.3 yards per punt return. So again, neither team is punting the ball extremely well, so that could be a difference in a game like this. They're third in sacks allowed with 12. They have 18 sacks as well this season. Not that typical Jackson State pass rush, but they can make that play when it's needed, but they don't necessarily they don't have the numbers like they had in previous years where they would have over 30 sacks by the end of the season. Although they do have guys you still need to look out for. Interceptions, they're eighth with 7. Forced fumbles, they're eighth with 6. And fumble recoveries, they're fourth with 8. Conversions, Tigers are first in first downs per game as an offense with 24.3. Second in first downs allowed by defense with 17. They complete 50%, 50.7% on third down. That's second in the league. They're second in third down defense at 31.7%. And fourth down offense, they're 10th, 10 of 13 for 76%. I had that by attempts. They lead the league in third down percentage offense at 76%. Like I said, they're 10th in third down attempts. They don't really go for it much. Only 13 attempts on the season, but they have 10 conversions, which is a pretty high number for the league. Tied for basically fourth place with 10 conversions. Fourth down defense, they allow 56%, which is fourth in the league. Opponents are 9 of 16, so they've done a pretty good job there of stopping teams on fourth down when they need it. Penalties. If there's been anything that's been Jackson State weakness, it's penalties, and they've had a couple of games where they cut those numbers down, but penalties have really bit them in the butt in games, but it hasn't cost them games. So, you really want to be careful with that in a game like this. You don't want to extend the drive for a team like this. You don't want to stop a drive against a defense like Prairie View, with penalties. But Jackson State has 98 penalties on the season for 942 yards, 85.6 yard average. Their opponents are not penalized as highly. 78 penalties for 670 yards, 60.9 yard average per game. Red zone offense, Tigers, 30 of 50 for 78%, 30 touchdowns, 22 on the ground, 8 through the air, 9 of 14 on field goals. They have four turnovers, 2 interceptions, 2 fumbles. Defense, 21 of 27 in the red zone for 77%. They allow 14 touchdowns, 7 and 7, 7 rushing, 7 passing. Opponents 7 of 7 on field goals. and they have 5 takeaways, 3 turnovers on downs, a fumble, and an interception. They lead the league, obviously, in time of possession with a 31 minute and 30-yard average, 39 minute, 30-second yard, 31 minute, 30-second average per game. When you look at what the Tigers have done as an individual group of guys, um, we'll start off with the run game because that's where they shine. Um, they have 3 guys with over 600 yards rushing. Travis Terrell Jr. has 600, or he has 574 yards net on the season, 6.2 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns on 93 carries. Denario Davenport, 102 carries, 663 yards. He averages 6.5 yards per carry and 7 touchdowns. And Ahmad Miller, 152 carries, 1,043 yards, 1,027 yards net, 6.8 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. When healthy, Jacobian Morgan has 265 yards. Jared Lockhart, he has 196 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. And so let's kind of talk about this quarterback situation. Um, I'm not 100% sure. I know on Monday, Coach Taylor was saying that they weren't quite sure where Morgan would be, where he would be at this point in terms of being ready for this game. And so you've had a guy like Jared Lockhart step in, and I wanted to kind of look at what, if anything, was different between when the two guys have played. And obviously, there's going to be some difference. You got a guy that's a freshman and a guy that's a senior, so you're going to have some differences. But I kind of feel like I kind of feel like Jackson State doesn't throw the ball as much when Lockhart is out there. His highest attempts on the season is 27 against Valley. He threw 21 times against Tuskegee, which was his first start, and he threw 21 times against Bethune-Cookman. He had 10 attempts against FAMU and 16 against Alcorn. So they lean on that running game heavy when he's playing, and rightfully so. When Morgan's out there, he got hurt against Grambling, so he had 6 attempts in that game. But other than that, his fewest attempts was 23. So he had 30 against Hampton, 27 against USM, 31 against Southern, 30 against Alabama A&M, and then the 23 against Bama State. So in the 5 full games he's played, in the 5 full games he started, he's thrown the ball no less than 23 times. And Lockhart's only thrown the ball more than that once. So you can see a little bit more leaning on the run game between the two. And that's that's no knock on Lockhart. He's averaging 185.6 yards per game, 928 yards. He started 5 games. Morgan, and these numbers are just basically from starts. That's not counting, any time that like the Grambling game where where Lockhart came off the bench and played. But these are starts. Morgan 1,183 yards, 197.1 yards per game through the air. So you can see a slight difference. It's not a huge difference. The one thing that did not change is the running game. This offense has run for less than 200 yards 3 times this season. The fewest they've had this season is 191 yards. That's a season high for some offenses, and that's their season low. So they are gonna run the football. The fewest times they've run the ball this season is 34. So they've had multiple 50 plus carry games. They had 3 of those games where they carried the ball over 50 times. Every game other than that first game of the season, they've ran the ball 40 plus times. So 10 40 plus carry games with 3 of those being 50 plus carries. They know what they want to do and they're gonna do it and they're gonna run the ball. And when the offense can run it, obviously that leads to the passing game opening up. They've had some big passing games this season. 256 against Tuskegee, 337 against Southern, 314 against Bama A&M, 250 against Grambling, 241 against Valley. So they've been able to have those higher passing yard games to go with higher rushing yard games. So they typically, when the passing offense, when the running offense is working, the passing offense can definitely work. Um, like I say, recently they've kind of leaned more into the run game, just to kind of look at it. Um, these last few games, um, since Lockhart's taken over, they run the ball 56 times, 45 times, 52 times, and 42 times. And they also ran the ball 50 times in his first game. So they know, they know to run the ball when he's out there. Their 350 plus yard carry game, 350 plus carry games have been with Lockhart as starting quarterback. So if he gets the start, they're gonna be really run heavy, and they're definitely gonna try to make things easier for him, in the passing game, especially against a defense like this. You don't want to throw that guy out there and have him just slinging the ball all over the place, which is not their game. So I think you're gonna see them try to run the ball, and Purdy's gonna try to take that away and make him beat them. And if Morgan plays, he's gonna be rusty. He's missed 4 games. So, at times he's had a tendency at times to kind of start off slow. Sometimes, pressure get to him. So it'd be interesting to see. But I think whoever's at quarterback, this offense still has a chance to put up numbers in this game. Um, Obviously you got Nate Rembert, who is a weapon in the pass game, 41 catches, 670 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Obviously, we knew his numbers would drop coming from Valley, but he's still he's still an exceptional wide receiver, and he still can make those big plays. And with better guys around him, he's that much more lethal. Jamil Gardner, 32 catches, 483 yards, 2 touchdowns. Janailin Dupree, 29 catches, 472 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Jency Riley, 16 catches, 169 yards, and 1 kick to the chest and 1 touchdown. Um, Kobe Paul, 12 catches for 168 yards. And so as you can see, they have 5 guys with double-digit catches. Again, they don't throw the ball as much, so the numbers aren't going to be as high. They are Shamar Savage. I think he's back. He has 8 catches on the season, 140 yards. So that they're not gonna just sling it around the field. That's just not what they do. So they are a team that's married to their identity, in a way that I haven't seen from a lot of teams, and that's gonna be interesting to see if Prairie View can actually get them out of that, because they are gonna run the football. They're like me on college football 26. I ain't good, but I'm gonna run the hell out the ball, and they are good, and they're gonna run the hell out the ball. But that's gonna be an interesting matchup. Quincy Ivory, the defensive player of the year, newcomer of the year in the SWAC, 64 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 13 and a half tackles for loss, and 6 sacks. Like I said, this defense isn't necessarily like it typically is. When they had Nobles and those guys last year. When they had James Houston and all those guys back in the day, a couple years ago. They're not gonna just sit there and pin their ears back and just harass you, but they are gonna make plays. They're gonna get stops. And if you look at the Bethune-Cookman game, his defense did not allow offensive touchdown. There was a special team touchdown and 2 field goals. So they're gonna harass you, and they're gonna smother you to a degree. The penalties and things and mistakes here and there are gonna keep teams in the game, and that's been their only downfall, I think, this season. Reed Pulliam has 60 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. Shamar Hawkins, he has 50 tackles. Um, Ashton Taylor, that's a guy I was really high on in the preseason. He had 44 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. BJ Washington, 44 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss, 1 interception. Cam Salas has 2 interceptions on the season and 41 tackles. Carmelo Jones, he has 35 tackles on the season. John Brown, 32 tackles, 4.5 tackles for loss. Right now, the leading guy in interceptions is Salas with 2, and then they have a few guys with 1 apiece. Looking at the special teams for Jackson State, the Tigers, um, Donovan Warren is the leading punter right now. He averages 37.3 yards per punt with a long of 62. He has 1 touchback, 4 punts fair caught, 7 inside the 20, and 150+ yard punt. They have had 3 punts blocked, so that's something that you got to kind of be cautious of. Um, Gerardo Basil, 8 of 14 on field goals, 57%, with a long of 46. He's 4 of 6 from 20 to 29 yards, 1 of 3 from 30 to 39 yards, 3 or 4 from 40 to 49 yards, and 0 for 1 50 plus. Warren, 4 or 5 on field goals, 80%. 2 or 2 on field goals from 20 to 29 yards, 1 or 2 on 30 to 39 yards, and 1 or 2 on 40 to 49 yards. He has a long of 41. They blocked a field goal this season. They haven't had one. They haven't had one block, but they have blocked one. Um, Naylor is the kickoff guy. 52 kickoffs, 3,046 yards, 58.6 yard average, 20 touchbacks, 2 kicks out of bounds. Returns, Jabari Jones has 7 punt returns for 104 yards with a 14.8 yard average, longer 25. Rimbert has 4 for 43, 10.7 yard average, longer 23. Simmons has 16 returns for 343 yards with a 21 yard average, longer 77. Terrell, 14 returns, 302 yards, 21.5 yard average, with a longer 74. So they have guys that can break it. I know Jones has been close on a punt return. Obviously they have 2 long kickoff returns. So, those 77 yarders can turn into 85, 90 yarders. So that to me is a big difference in this game. As far as my prediction goes, I think this, like I said, I think this is a good matchup. I think this is a situation where you have 2 teams that belong here, 2 teams that have an identity that they believe in, 2 teams that are not gonna be easily moved out of their squares, so to speak. You're not really gonna get either one of these guys to get out of what they do. If somebody can do that in a game like this, then that team will win. But I think this game comes down to Prairie View defense against Jackson State offense, because the Panthers defense is definitely one of the best in the league. Um, they have to find a way to slow down Jackson State running game. Jackson State's a team that's really strong against the run on defense, so I think that can help them against the Panthers. The Panthers have the weapons to run the ball even against Jackson State, but I think that that because they're built more to stop the run, that's going to help them. And maybe if they can make the Panthers throw the ball, you can make a couple plays there. But to me, the difference here is can Prairie View be the team to hold Jackson State under 190 yards? If you do that, I think you win this game, especially depending on the quarterback situation for Jackson State. I think you can win this game with Lockhart, but it's probably not going to be a pretty game. I think if Morgan plays, like I say, he's been out. It's going to take him a little while to get going. This might not be the kind of game for that. I think this will be a game that's going to be in. Both teams can play ugly. So this is not a team. This is not a game with an offense. Like Bama State that scores 30 points a game all the time. So if they struggle offensively, who knows what happened. Both of these teams can play ugly. Jackson State's a team that runs the ball, and when you run the ball, you can play ugly. When you stop the run, you can play ugly. Prairie View can stymie teams, and neither team gives up points on defense. So I don't think this is going to be a game that has a lot of points scored. I do think, I think this is going to be one of those games where, you get the mid-20s. If somebody scores 30 in this game, they're winning automatically. I look at it like that. If either side crosses 30, that team will win. I don't see this being I'm gonna say this. These are the kind of games that we look at and we predict to be defensive games, and they turn into a shootout. I don't think that's gonna happen, but a lot of time in games like this, that happens. But I don't see both teams scoring 30. If somebody scores 30, that team is gonna win this game. I think the edge that Jackson State has a couple edges. One, they're at home, so they're comfortable. Two, as a team, they've been here. They were here last year. Not a lot of guys were on the teams that went in 21 and 22, but there's a lot of guys that went last year, so they understand what this is. The coaching staff at Prairie View, they understand being in these settings. A lot of guys may not. This is the first for some of these guys. So the Panthers could be a little tight in a situation like this. It's a I'm not a fan of early games, and this 1 o'clock is kind of early. You're gonna have to get off to a good start, and I like Jackson State having the edge in special teams, because I think games like this can swing on special teams. A missed field goal, a bad punt, a good return, things like that can put you in better field position. Or you're able to make the opponent have to drive further. Those are the things that are gonna win this game. I know that's elementary, but in games like this, it comes down to that stuff. It comes down to the minute details. Um, I like, I like what Prairie View's been doing these last few weeks. I think they have an attitude about them that they A, belong here, and B, they can make it beyond here. They're not just here to go to the SWAC championship game and then go home. They're here to go to Atlanta. That's been their goal all season, and it's been voiced all season. So they know and believe that they can get there. Jackson State's done it before. Can they take another punch from a team that's hungry? That's one of those intangible type of things. But as far as on the field, I think Prairie View's gonna have to be able to slow down Jackson State's running game. Now, if you can, because I think Jackson State has been the kind of team that if they can't really throw in a game, they still can run. So I don't think taking the pass away from them is gonna hurt them as much as it would some teams. Although if taking the pass away means forcing turnovers, that's a different story. But I think the fact that Jackson State has been consistently running the ball for over 200 yards this season, I think that's a key factor here. I think that's one of the biggest differences in this game. I think that's one of the things that's gonna put them over the top, is the fact that they are gonna be who they are regardless of the situation. And that dedication to what they do is gonna be the difference here. I like I said, I love Prairie View's defense. I love Chase Bingman. I like Lamar McDowell. I think Rockwell's a hell of a receiver. Cam Peters has been a very good quarterback these last few weeks. But I'm going with Jackson State because they're playing at home. Honestly, I think that's one of the bigger differences here. I think it's gonna be a close game, though. I know a lot of people predicting blowout. I don't see it. I think this is like a 24-21 type of game. And I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with 24-21. It could get a little bit higher than that, but I think it's gonna be in that realm. Again, I think this is a game that nobody crosses 30. I think if somebody crosses 30, then you're looking at a blowout. Unless it's like a 31-28 type of game. But I do, like I said before, I think 30 points is an automatic win in this game. But I think this is going to be a lower 20s game because both defenses are stingy. So you're going to have to work for your points. You're going to have to work for your yards. This may be the type of game where the first team that gets impatient and tries to force a big play cost themselves. I'm looking forward to watching this game, though. I think this is going to be a really good game. And I think this is going to be one of the better SWAC championship games we had. I mean, basically all SWAC championship games since 2021 have been, kind of double-digit victories. So if we can get a close game in this, I think that's a win for everybody. So again, I like Jackson State in a close one, 24-21. I think the Panthers have a really good chance of winning this game, though. So don't think that I'm picking Jackson State, mean Prairie View don't got a chance. I think the Panthers got a damn good chance. I just like Jackson State running game, and I like the fact that they at home. And I just like the fact that they can be a difference maker on special teams. Those are the differences to me in this game. None of those things mean Prairie View is not worthy. None of those things mean Prairie View is deficient. None of those things mean disrespect toward Prairie View. I just think that that's my prediction. I see a lot of people taking predictions personally. They're just predictions, man. You can have your own prediction. So just because somebody don't think your team gonna blow out somebody else, don't mean they hate your team. So stop taking these things personally, man. They're just for fun, honestly. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.